about what happened in Orlando. It's happened again. This is the worst attack on Americans since 9/11. Again, Islamic extremism. This guy, I hesitate to even say his name, killed 49 people, injured 53 others. But what we know about this guy is that he made statements clearly to 911 about what his intentions were and why he was doing it.
Yeah, you know, as a Muslim, after every one of these, you wonder, when am I going to start to see the anger from the rest of my community? And many of us that are involved in this reform, and you know, this organization, I have to say, I hope people can separate from the politics we were talking about before. We're a nonprofit and we don't get into candidate issues, but the bottom line is this is a bipartisan issue. It's a nonpartisan issue. And I thought people would wake up after Fort Hood, then the Boston bombing, Chattanooga, San Bernardino. And when are we going to realize there is a core ideology? ISIS even is the tip of the iceberg. The underlying feeding of it is a theocratic mentality, a supremacist mentality. And we have to wake up to the fact that violent homophobia is a natural byproduct of nonviolent homophobia. Violent Islamism is a natural byproduct of nonviolent Islamism. And we cannot even say the words. This is why calling it what it is so important.
Tell me how you would call it.
We should be not countering violent extremism, but countering violent Islamism. Islamism is the belief that your national identity in the legal system should be run by Sharia or Islamic law.
Right.
So Islam now is going through that same time in history that our founding fathers were going through when they rejected theocracy and canonic law and said that a country should be based in a republic, based in reason and common law.
Boil it down for our viewers, both streaming and on this program. Why now? Why have we gotten to this point now? What is happening in the Islamic world that has spawned this? What's happening?
The first trigger was the Arab awakening of 2011, which was a good thing. Our families were praying for this. But 9/11
was before all that.
Absolutely. So the disease is pre-modern Islam, which has been since the 13th and 14th century. There's been a pressure on that, like a pressure cooker, for centuries. The Ottomans kept a lid on it by their military type system, and then after World War II we carved up the Middle East into these countries, let them run by dictators that we fed and allowed that to contain, and every country contained it and used radical or political Islam. The Saudi royal family created Wahhabism. The Egyptians allowed Muslim Brotherhood to grow. Iran, the Shah, allowed Khomeinism to grow. And in Iran, it took over and became the government with Khomeini's government. In Saudi Arabia, the Wahhabis have spent billions in spreading their ideas across the planet. So the San Bernardino shooters, the ISISes of the world, the founding fathers are our allies, the Saudis. So to say that we are treating this problem, we keep doing a whack-a-mole, John, because we're not treating, we continue to call allies countries that are actually the forefathers of the ideas. We created it.
We fed into it. We supported these regimes that did this.
And the Obama principles, and even President Bush 43, was that, well, we can't alienate all our allies, and we can't even call it radical Islam because it'll offend the Saudis, the Jordanians, the Qataris, because they believe their Islam is, you know, that's not Islam, these are just terrorists. Well, it's like trying to convince an alcoholic family that their father, their brother, that are all alcoholics, you need to treat the alcoholism, and the substance is theocratic Islam, and it's an Islam that's in the 13th century that needs to reform, and our Muslim reform movement has been trying to do that.
Now, when Donald Trump talks about a pause on immigration for Muslims, how do you take that as an American Muslim?
Again, one party has undershot completely and surrendered, and now we have a candidate that overshoots, and we need to pause all immigration. It is a bit naive to say, well, just Muslim immigration. Had he said Islamist immigration, jihadist immigration?
What if he had done it geographically and said these countries, we're going to put a pause on it?
Perfect. That's what I've been calling for our national media for years.
That would have been acceptable.
Absolutely. Like, I have family in Syria. We're trying to get out of Syria, and I don't think we should. I can tell you, they live in Aleppo. If folks come rushing from northeastern Syria where ISIS is, they're not going to let any of those into their part of the neighborhood.
Can we vet this? Is it possible? Because what we hear from the State Department is there's really not a great way to figure this out.
Well, I'm going to be testifying.
If somebody's extreme, if somebody may want to do us harm.
Yeah, I'll be testifying to the Senate this week about this. And the reason we should call it radical Islam is if we start to have criteria to vet them. Our Muslim Reform Movement has a 2-page declaration that could be used to vet jihadists, against jihadists, which is, do they condemn the caliphate? Do they condemn any and all Islamic states? So we need
Couldn't
to
they lie when we ask them these questions?
Well, in the Cold War, we were accepting refugees from Vietnam, from Soviet Union. In World War II, we accepted refugees from Japan, from Germany. So we were able to vet against Nazism and against loyalty to the emperor in Japan.
It can be done, you're saying.
It can be done, but it can't be done with a 2-second question, are you a Muslim? You could lie. That doesn't work. You could lie about that. It's harder to lie in a 20-minute interview or 30 about ideology of jihadism.
The bigger question for me is, if somebody has this Wahhabist theology, tendency, can that kind of person possibly assimilate in the United States?
They can't, and this is where we're giving our Muslim population a pass. I mean, to hear... We protested the mosque that the president went to in February, just a few months ago. Obama went to Islamic Society of Baltimore, and we said, this mosque you're going to has a curtain between men and women. They had a sermon a year ago that was just venomously homophobic, in which the imam there in 2014 called for the eradication of homosexuals from the planet. That's the mosque that the president used as the backdrop of the Muslim community in America. And our Muslim Reform Movement had folks from our women activists that were saying, listen, you are insulting Muslims with a bigotry of low expectations by not holding them accountable to the same ideas. Fast forward now to Orlando. Oh, was this guy homophobic? Was he not? What a surprise. And now the Democrats are doing a sit-in about guns instead of actually dealing with the ideology. I tweeted out this week, I said, oh, in my Ramadan stupor, I thought maybe we were having sit-ins across the mosque, across the country, of Muslims protesting the imams who are homophobic. But no, it was Democrats protesting guns.
We're going to take a break on Newsmaker Sunday. When we come back, we're going to talk about Brexit, the exit of Great Britain from the EU, and how that may tie in very strongly to some of these anti-immigrant tendencies and feelings. Final moments with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, the Brexit vote. Boy, a lot of people did not see that coming. Britain exits the EU after 4 decades. What does it mean about this Islamic immigration to some of these countries? And Brits apparently want to put the brakes on it.
Yeah, I know. And there's sort of this aftershock of trying to say, well, is it Trumpism? Is it what is it? I think it's Reaganism. It's Margaret Thatcherism. It's a return to national identity, and the EU sort of began to dissolve that. And ISIS has challenged that. The nationalism in the Middle East that now the theocrats are starting to say is mixed with being Islamic, Islamo-nationalism. They realize that the Achilles heel of the West has been the loss of a national contract, a national identity. And as we lose that, that's how they get the Omar Mateen's and the San Bernardino shooters and others to become loyalists for the global jihad, is they're not tied deeply into being American. And until we start to grow again what it means to be British, Belgian, French, and American, and this is why the Brexit vote, the majority of Brits get it. They voted for Brexit because their leaders have been so weak against political Islam.
Why is it that some of these terrorists, several of them, really aren't mosque goers? They don't seem overtly religious. They're radicalized online, perhaps, the homegrown. What gives?
Again, the virus of militancy will get the weakest individuals that often may have personality issues, psychiatric issues,
I think you're
issues.
onto something there.
But the virus itself is a theological, deep type of Islam that's theocratic. The Saudis behead more people than ISIS does, but they just don't put it on YouTube and revel in it. But they have the same type of medieval society in Saudi Arabia. That's, you know, sort of legal Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia.
How are you accepted right now in your mosque when you speak out about these things? We got 10 seconds.
Well, they deal with it, and they, you know, we give them a tough love. And in Ramadan, you know, it's a time of peace and reflection. But afterwards, we'll get back to the debate.
Blessings.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, and to our folks who we're streaming with right now. Appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Jasser.
Thank you, John.